Afternoon to everyone, and I welcome everyone to this webinar, today's webinar. And, today's speaker is Dr. Rohini Srivastava. Dr. Rohini, she is a senior scientist at ICR, National Institute of Plant Biotechnology. I think most of you know that previously it was known as NRCPB, that is National Research Center for Plant Biotechnology. She did her PhD from Bangalore University in biochemistry, and she also did a postdoc in Indian Institute of Science and University of Agricultural Science, Dharwad. Now she is doing research at NIPB, and her major research area is basically generation of transgenic pigeon pea for resistance to one of the major insect, that is Helicoverpa armigera. She worked very dedicatedly to optimize the method, and I think she has an expertise to do implanted transformation of pigeon pea. I think in the entire talk she will discuss about all those methods which she is working on, and she is also interested in understanding the biology behind insect resistance in pigeon pea. She is looking into wild cultivar, trying to find out if there is any resistant gene there, so that she can include it in the transgenic lines. So this is what she is up to. Today's topic that she is going to speak is biotechnological approaches for engineering resistance to insect herbivore, um, mainly Helicoverpa armigera and pigeon pea. So yeah, I think it's an interesting topic, and I'll be happy if you come with questions and interact with Rohini and get all your doubts clear. Yeah, Rohini, you can start, please.
Yeah. I hope I'm audible to everybody. I think
Yeah,
you
I think
can
so.
hear. It's fine. So at the outset, thank you, Sumita, and I must thank Dr. Vidyut Sharma for giving me an opportunity to explain and share my work and expertise in this platform. And it's indeed a great pleasure. So as Dr. Sumita said, I will be talking mainly on the biotechnological approaches which we have been using to combat one very important and a notorious pest, that is Helicoverpa armigera in pigeon pea. So I think you all know how important pigeon pea is, especially for the Indian continent. And the pigeon pea, or Cajanus cajan, is a major source of protein, and it's, I can say that it is a must component in all our dining tables in this country, at least. And we know that all the plants, like whether all the crop species are generally, they have to combat a lot of stress factors during the entire period, during their entire growth period. And these could be both biotic and abiotic stress factors, because of which there is a lot of the plants have to compromise a lot with the yield, and the realization of the actual potential yield that is there in them is quite difficult. So the same scenario is also evident in pigeon pea, where we have seen that there is stagnation in production of the productivity of pigeon pea through these at least 2.5 decades. That if we see that there's a lot of stagnation, and this stagnation is mainly because, as I told you, the lot of these stress factors. And one of the important stress factors, if we have to focus on in pigeon pea, are the insect pests that attack pigeon pea right from their seedling stage till the pod bearing and the seed. And among the various insect pests that pigeon pea has to combat during its growth period has been the pod borer, that is the Helicoverpa armigera. We all know what Helicoverpa armigera is, because it's also a major pest in cotton, where it is called as the cotton bollworm. And there's another pod borer in pigeon pea called as the spotted pod borer, or Maruca vitrata, which along with this Helicoverpa is another menace to the crop and thereby yielding, reducing its yield. Along with that, there's another pod fly as well as blister beetle, which create havoc to pigeon pea. So now, as biotechnologists, we look out for options as to how to combat these pests or how to make pigeon pea resistant to these pests and help the crop realize its potential yield. Okay, so the need of the hour is, as a biotechnologist, is identification of superior genes and introgress them in pigeon pea so that the plants can successfully combat these insect pests. Okay, so the option would be gene prospecting, that is identification of superior genes, and you use that through transgenics and try to make the plant resistant. So by and large, now in the present scenario, if I have to say, biotechnological approaches using both transgenic as well as non-transgenic approaches are in vogue. So scientists are not only using genes from other sources like that of Bt genes and other toxic genes which are toxic to the insects, but they are also trying to identify superior genes within the plant species and try to use them in transgenics or genome editing for the transformation into the resistant crops. So in this talk, I am going to now share the work that we are doing. So my lab basically focuses on Helicoverpa armigera, and we also have a small rearing facility where we rear our own insects. Of course, with the starting material is the field population, which we collect from the IRI pigeon pea fields, and we manage we grow them on an artificial diet and use it for our studies. So by and large, we are using two methodologies here to combat the pest. One is using Bt genes, where we are using the already cloned and validated Bt genes, introgress them into pigeon pea and check for their resistance to the insect pest. And the second strategy, as Dr. Sumita said, we are trying to exploit wild relatives of pigeon pea as a source for resistance towards this insect pest. So if I have to go one after the other, I would like to take up the introgression of genes to confer resistance through transgenic as my first approach. And here I have to tell you that pigeon pea, like chickpea, that Dr. Vidyut Sharma and Dr. Sumita have been working, you know that it's very, very difficult to regenerate. So as biotechnologists, we all know that all plants don't respond very well to the tissue culture regeneration protocols. So such plants, which cannot regenerate well or which have trouble in regeneration, are called as recalcitrant or difficult to regenerate crop species. Now, so way back in the late 1980s, people started to wonder what can be done to evade this tissue culture so that all the crops, be it monocots or dicots, which are difficult for regeneration, can be transformed with ease. So then they came up with strategies called as tissue culture independent or in-planter transformation protocols, wherein the tissue culture step is totally avoided, reduced or avoided. So the pioneering work was done in Arabidopsis, where they showed that floral dip and vacuum infiltration methods could allow the plants to take in the transgenes and become stable transformants. So these tissue culture independent transformation protocols then started getting extrapolated to other crop species with, of course, variations where people started using different tissues to for genetic engineering and use as explants for tissue culture, tissue for the transformation. So in this direction, pigeon pea also comes under the class of difficult to regenerate crop species. So my group I have been instrumental in coming up with one such tissue culture independent transformation strategy called as the apical meristem targeted implantar transformation, wherein the apical meristem, if you can see the cursor moving, the apical meristem region of pigeon pea is targeted with the transgenes and the plants are allowed to grow. So since this totally devoids tissue culture, we can do the transformation in a large number of seedlings and allow them to grow so that the transgenics are evaluated in the next generation, because the seedlings or the primary transformants which receive the gene will be chimeric. Since not all the cells of this primary transformant will be transformed, we have to allow them to grow in the greenhouse, collect the seeds, and then we have to do the screening in the next generation for the identification of transformants, that is the T1 generation transformants. So in this direction, we also have to have a high throughput selection strategy, which I will be explaining further, as to how do you in a very stringent manner. It not only has to be high throughput, but it also has to be stringent, so that you are not selecting all the escapes as primary or putative transformants for your further molecular analysis. So in this study, for development of transgenics for pod borer resistance in pigeon pea using apical meristem implantar transformation strategy, we mainly used two binary vectors harboring two independent crygenes. So we used a binary vector PBNAR with one insect resistance gene Cry2AA and another one with Cry1ACF. These two are VT genes, VT insecticidal genes which produce the insecticidal proteins, and the transformants were developed independently using these two binary vectors using the methodology that I just explained. So once we, the mode of selection of transformants, as I told you, was once the primary transformants with after infection have been allowed to grow in the greenhouse, we collect the seeds of individual plant and label them as specific T0 plant. Now, the seeds coming out of individual T0 plants are considered as a pool and they are screened in the presence of the selection agent. Here, as I told you, that we have to have a very high throughput screening and it should be stringent as well. So what we did was we came up with a sand-based screening of for the identification of transformants. It's a simple methodology. Each the seeds coming out of a particular plant are collected in a bottle and they are treated with the seedlings, just emerging seedlings, that is maybe 1 or 1.5 day old seedlings are treated with a particular concentration of kanamycin, which is deleterious to the wild type, and they are kept at around they are just given a brief shaking kind of a thing around 40 to 60 rpm for 4 to 6 hours, and they are just allowed to germinate. So can you see this on the screen here, a panel where I have shown that there are different lines, that is seeds belonging to different plants, and how there is variation in the response towards the selection agent and therefore its ability to grow. You can see that here in the last there are some set of plants which are growing very well. Now these are the absolute control which are not treated with kanamycin or any other selection agent based on your selectable marker in the binary vector. So in our case, we generally use NPT2 gene in the binary vector, and hence we use kanamycin as a selection agent. So now you can see here the second lane has hardly any plants at all, absolutely nothing. These are the treated wild type plants which have not been able to respond to the selection agent and hence they have died. But whereas the other seedlings that are continuing to grow, some very good, some little poor, and some hardly anything, are the various primary or the putative transferments which have been selected in the presence of the selection agent. So once we are through with this kind of preliminary screening for the selection of putative transferments, these plants which are able to grow in the presence are shifted to pots, and they are used for the further analysis. So now in our study, the major emphasis for the selection of transferments and for the continuation of transferments was based on integration, expression, and efficacy analysis. That is, integration of the tDNA with the specific Bt genes in them, as well as are the ability of the plants to express these CRY genes, how much of protein is being expressed, and how effective they are against the Helicoverpa armigera. So we challenge the plants, deliberately challenge them with the larvae of Helicoverpa armigera, and then we select the transferments which are able to combat or resist the insect pest. So the focus was mainly on PCR analysis, expression analysis, and using Western blot, ELISA, etc., and bioefficacy analysis for resistance to Helicoverpa armigera. So this is a snapshot of how we went ahead in the cell screening and identification of transferments carrying pigeon pea transferments carrying the CRY1 ACF gene. Okay, now this CRY1 ACF gene is a CRY gene, which is a chimeric CRY gene, which was developed at our center and also validated earlier. Now this CRY gene is a chimeric CRY gene in the sense that it has two domains of CRY gene from CRY1AC and one from CRY1F. Okay, so this gene now we have seen that it is quite effective against Helicoverpa, and the transferments that have been developed in pigeon pea also confirm that. So here is a snapshot where you see that we could successfully screen for the putative transferments in a sand based the screening experiment, as I told you. Then those that could grow well in the screening experiment were checked for the integration using PCR analysis, and we also looked for the expression of this particular CRY gene in some of the plants where the RT-PCR and Western blot confirmed the expression of CRY gene. So these at various generations, we see to it that the plants that perform very well against the Helicoverpa armigera in the bioassays are concerned. What do you mean by this very well? So what we do is, when we do the in vitro, see, this is a panel showing an in vitro bioassay of pigeon pea against the pest, where we collect trifoliate leaves of say around 45 to 50 days old plants and challenge 10 neonate larvae and observe for up to 96 hours about the ability of the larvae to feed and also allow in its growth or succumb to the toxin that is being expressed by the plant. So now we selected those plants which are able to kill the Helicoverpa armigera at least 80% to 100% of the larvae that are loaded onto the leaves. So such plants which have 80 to 100% mortality and show very less damage, say up to 5 to 10% damage, are selected as promising. So the same kind of snapshot image I have for the pigeon pea transferments in the CRY2 with CRY2AA gene, where the different steps like screening in the presence of antibiotic, PCR analysis, and expression analysis, followed by the ability to resist Helicoverpa armigera, were used to select the transferments. So the pipeline was something like this. Generally what we do is we select the seeds produced by each of the T0 plant which was infected by Agrobacterium carrying your binary vector, and when you screen the T1 generation plants for the ability to withstand the selection agent, then those are considered as events at the end of T1 generation. So then each of this is followed across advanced generation for integration, expression, and efficacy. So now when we did the same thing for the Cry2AA plants, Pigeon Pea Cry2AA plants, as well as Cry1ACF plants, at the end of T3 generation, which was in the stage of pots in the greenhouse condition, we selected around 18 events, that is 18 events coming from different T1 generation plants as superior. And similarly, Cry1ACF harboring transformants were 14 in number, which were superior. Now, at this stage, T3 generation, we wanted to check how, like out of the pot and out of the greenhouse condition, how these plants are going to perform, which is actually the crux. The ability of the plants to perform well in the pots and the soil could vary, because in the soil we are almost coming to the natural condition and nothing is contained there. So then in this case, we applied for IBSC and we got permission to conduct a confined and a contained event selection trial under the net house condition. So we chose these 18 events of Cry2AA as well as the 14 events from Cry1ACF along with their respective wild type plants. We decided to perform a net house trial to check actually how their performance would be in an open condition. So then this net house trial I'll show you the actual picture of the trial. But what we did was the event selection trial was conducted under a net house condition where the plants were grown and the larvae were released, and then the plants were assessed for the ability to resist or succumb to the insect pest that we are releasing. So this is the layout by and large that we followed, and the net house looked something like this, where there was where the plants are grown on either sides with the respective controls as well as the events in the zone in them. And the total Cry2AA events that we had used were 18 and the Cry1ACF were 14. So random block design was used and at least 3 replicates per each of the event were used, and we followed plant to plant distance of 30 centimeter and row to row distance of 60 centimeter. At the age when the plants attained 45 days after sowing, 10 larvae, neonate larvae of Helicoverpa armatura were released per plant. And then this was a kind of, if you see this, they were allowed to interact totally in an open manner by releasing the larvae. So you all know that Helicoverpa is a very active and motile pest, and it can move around very quickly across the plants. So but still we we were very inquisitive to check how these plants responded to the quite a huge load of larvae that we had released in the net house. So if you see here, the first panel here, you can see these are the control plants where the damage is significantly high, and then you can see that almost all the leaves of the plants are eaten. And even in the transgenic events, some of them were being eaten by the insect pests, but there were still some plants, some events which showed, if you can see here in the panel below and also the above, that there was very less damage and the plants seemed to resist the attacking pest. So based on this experiment, where the plants were openly challenged with the larvae, 11 Cry2AA events and 9 Cry1ACF events were forwarded for further analysis. As I told you, this is an open net house trial where all the plants are there is no confiscation of the plants, and the 10 larvae that are loaded on one plant can move on to the next one, and so on and so forth. So what we thought was, but still these events were seen to be performing well. So we did not want to stop it here. We conducted another NetHouse trial in this with these events by using a pot level experiment, where in the, can you see here in this picture, you can see that the plants event wise were grown in the pots, and you have a support here, so that generally in pots they grow very lankily, and hence we had to support them, and we had to confiscate each of these plants with a sheet, with a polythene sheet, so that the larvae that are loaded onto these plants do not cross over. So the response of the individual event or plant can be really, we can check and then come to a consensus. So this was conducted as a continuation, and we saw that the control plants again have real bad damage, and many of, like almost 50 to 60% damage was seen in the control plants, as against some of the events. Can you see here, it is quite resistant, and we could see death of the larvae, and also there was avoidance of the larvae, and they were not preferring to feed the plant. So this gave us very good indication of the events that are really doing very well. And when we saw that, and then we could compare easily the soil condition and the pot condition, the performance in the event, and those with the damage of say 5 to 10% were considered as superior and promising. So based on this kind of experimentation under soil as well as under pot condition, for 2 continuous seasons, we have now selected 5 Ki2A events and 5 Cry1ACF events as promising. And we have also done continued with the molecular analysis of these plants, and we could successfully check the presence of the tDNA, expression of the cryproC proteins, as well as the integration. So we could do southern analysis with some of these events in Pigeon Pea, and showed that like there is integration of mostly single copy and maximum double copy of the tDNA in these transgenic plants. So now these 10 transgenic plants and some more of the transgenic plants which we found that they could be performing well have been selected, and we have now applied for an open field trial in the host institute, that is IRI premises, and our application is with RCGM and it is under consideration. In fact, I have even completed the presentation, and they have come up with some queries and clarifications, for which, after which I hope that we get a nod for the conduct of this experiment under the field trial and under the field conditions. And I would like to say here that most of this work we had a collaborative project with Dr. Vidyut Sharma, and it was a national fund project, and most of the work we had done it together when Assam was working on chickpea. We have been working in pigeon pea for quite some time now, and it was a very fruitful collaboration, I must say, that we had with Assam Agriculture University during the work of this development of this transgenics. And now I'm happy to share that they have come up to the field level, field trial level, and I'm sure that at least a couple of events should be able to perform well under the field conditions. And based on that, we can even try of stacking these positive events for increased sustainability against this insect pest. Now, as I told you, this was the first part that we have been working on now to check the ability of crygenes to help pigeon pea manage the insect pests. Now, we all know that there are a lot of sensitive situations, and also we are using transgenes, that is genes from BT and all that. So we thought that as a spin-off, why not we think of any other source or any other way to manage this insect pest. Then what came to our mind was the use of crop wild relatives. So these wild relatives specifically I'm talking about pigeon pea, they are known to be quite resilient because they are wild, and they have lot of these resistance resources for umpteen number of traits, and like be it abiotic, biotic, inbiotic, for fungi, for nematodes, for various insect pests, and Helicoverpa armigera is also one of them. So we wanted to extrapolate this or exploit the nature in the wild relative, or the molecular mechanism basically in the wild relative to resist this. We wanted to first understand that, and we also are looking at the options for extrapolating this into the cultivated pigeon pea so that this insect pest can be managed. And in this direction actually, literature always already has, we have a knowledge from literature that there are many species which are resistant to Helicoverpa armigera in the pigeon pea, among the pigeon pea wild relatives, and I chose these 4 of them: Cajanus scaraboides, albicans, sericius, as well as Cajanus platycarpus. So we wanted to decipher what could be the genes or what could be the proteins that are playing a role in the resistance mechanism in these wild relatives against the pigeon pea pod borer, against Helicoverpa armigera. So in the beginning, like when we started off this study, we first wanted to understand, are they really resistant? Are they really showing some kind of a resistance towards this insect pest? So we initially did a in vitro challenge experiment, like like I explained to you with the how we did with the transgenics. We did a cut leaf bioassay. We took the leaves, third leaves of well expanded leaves, and we released neonate to second instar larvae of Helicoverpa armigera and observed for the feeding and the response of the plant. And at the end of 96 to 98 hours, we could assess the ability of the plants to based on their response. And we also used the cultivated Cajanus cajan, that's the cultivated pigeon pea, as a control. And when we did that, we saw that Cajanus cajan, which is a cultivar TTB7 we had followed, had the leaf damage up to 70%, and it was not able to resist the insect pest. Whereas all other wild relatives had some kind of resistance, a varying level of resistance in them, with mortality of the larvae, not only mortality of the larvae, but also reduced leaf damage. And when we tried to analyze, we saw that the Cajanus platycarpus and scaraboides in our experiment could perform, like, comparatively they were performing very well. And we went ahead with Cajanus platycarpus to identify the molecular mechanism. So we wanted to understand this mechanism using a systems biology approach, using a transcriptome and a proteome based approach, and a time point based. It's a dynamic transcriptome and proteome we wanted to look at. That is, what are the proteins, what are the transcripts or the proteins that are getting expressed at different time points of the herbivore challenge, and what relevance it has to insect response, and are they going to help us combat this insect resistance. So that was our hypothesis. And when we saw that, what we did was we selected time points based on the
Hello. Hello.
Reduced, and what was the kind of hello.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead, Rohini. We lost your connection, but I think you are back again. Hello.
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 Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but you just start your slides again. So probably we can't see the slides.
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah.
I'll see where I was.
Yeah, that's 126. Slide number
Yeah,
26. Yeah, open
yeah,
that. Yeah, but now start.
yeah. It's seen now. You see, can you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's visible to me. Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So as I said, we developed we planned a dynamic transcriptome and proteome analysis, and we the plants that were grown in the under contained controlled conditions were challenged with second instar larvae per trifoliate leaf, and we collected samples after 18 hours, 38 hours, and 96 hours. And we wanted to, the main idea was to conduct the transcriptome and proteome analysis of each of these time points and to check what could be the variation and compare the transcripts across the two species to come out with some of the insect resistance genes. So this is the kind of the experimental setup we had followed, and to show you the kind of damage that the pest has made. In case of the wild relative, there is reduced damage when compared to increased damage in the case of the Kajanus kajan. And we also selected one systemic leaf, that is not the leaf other than those that were challenged directly, as to know what could be happening in the other part of the plant which was not directly challenged by the insect. And so now we are actually into the analysis. We are into the analysis, comparative analysis of the proteome as well as the transcriptome. In fact, we have got a couple of we could publish some of the good papers in this area where we have now initiated, and where we could see that the transcriptome of even during non-stress condition, there has been variation in the transcripts accumulated in the wild relative when compared to the Kajanus kajan or the cultivated. And now, to shortlist the genes that are actually responsible for the resistance against Helicoverpa armigera, we are looking out for these criteria, that is expression level polymorphism, that is the fold change in the expression, as well as sequence level polymorphism. And we are now zeroing on these kind of genes that are for insect cell wall destruction, interference in digestion, availability reduction in the availability of nutrients, upstream regulatory elements, etc. And we have listed down some 15 or 16 genes which we are now continuing to work with to check which can give us some of the leads against against this pest. And we have validated this in qPCR, and we have found that there is corroboration with the RNA-seq as well as the shortlisted qPCR shortlisted genes in qPCR. Now these 15 genes, we have proceeded ahead. We have now cloned it from Platycarpus, and we have now we have subcloned it into the binary vector. We are using pCambia, and we are now planning to we are first doing a tobacco expression and analysis, overexpression in tobacco, and based on the performance of in the tobacco, we are now taking them forward for pigeon pea using the same apical meristem targeted implanter transformation. And to just check whether this hypothesis has been working or not, what we did was these the genes that are cloned in pCambia were checked through agroinfiltration method using transient expression using GFP, and we just standardized using GFP in the Nicotiana benthamiana, and we also standardized the insect resistance, whether we could catch the ability of the infiltrated gene on the resistance mechanism. And we were very happy to see that the Cryvan ACF as a standardized when we use for standardization, it worked really very well. And you can see that the leaves infiltrated with Cryvan ACF showed absolutely no damage when compared to the control ones. So now what we have done is these we are validating the genes that we have chosen, which are differentially expressing in the wild relative, as I told you earlier, a set of 16 to 20 genes we have taken, and now we are analyzing them in the Nicotiana benthamiana to check for their ability to resist the Helicoverpa armigera. And I am happy to say that we are getting good positive leads in that. We have a chitinase gene which is working very well, and this is to show that we have a gene in the pathway of phenylpropanoid pathway as well as alpha amylase inhibitor. This is just a snapshot to show, but in-depth analysis is going on. And we also have data where we are working on to check, where we have come out with what could be the proteome level variation in the in these when you compare the wild relative to the cultivated Kajanas Kajan. Are there any variations? And it is so interesting to see that there are a lot of these secondary metabolite producing proteins, or the proteins that are playing an important role in the phenylpropanoid pathway are seen to be expressed more in the wild relative when compared to the Kajanas Kajan. When the Kajanas Kajan is taking a different path, and they are not able to manage the insect pest, the wild relative has been quite resilient, and its mode of approach to combat the insect has been totally different. So I'm sure that we will get at least some leads, basic leads, which can be very well extrapolated to not only in pigeon pea but also in other crops where these this pest is a menace. And also one more thing is, we will get to know that these studies, this kind of studies, we will know that how the wild relative is able to be resilient or able to manage large number of pests together in combination. So this also gives us a very useful way to analyze these genes, whether they can be used for multiple stress to combat multiple stress of both biotic and abiotic. And also we are planning that this the pyramiding of the events that we already have in with the cry genes, and these genes together can give us a better performance or a better response for this herbivore. And another very important aspect I would like to say here in such approaches are these though it is very difficult to for the interspecific hybrids and to happen in pigeon pea, because these are not crossable. It's very difficult for us to do that. The leads that we are getting in the can be the sequence variation can be extrapolated for also genome editing, since the transformation approach is already in place. So this is the kind of work which we have been doing since the last 7 to 8 years in my lab, where the focus is pigeon pea and pod borer, but we are trying to look for different methodologies so that the final end product is pigeon pea, which is able to combat Helicoverpa armigera. And but for my team, I don't think this humongous task of generating transformants, maintaining the transformants, doing the analysis, as well as maintaining and using and also analyzing such a huge big data that we have been handling, it would not have been possible but for my team who have been always a constant support for me. And once again, I would like to thank Sumita, Dr. Vidyut Sharma, for giving me an opportunity to share with you this kind of work that has been going on in our laboratory. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I am willing to answer.
Thank you, Rohini, for such a wonderful presentation. And I do have few questions, and there are a lot of people who have raised their hands. So I'll go through the questions. The first one is, can you expect chimeric issues or chimerism in T1 and subsequent generation? This is a question asked by Dr. Babu AG.
No, in the T0s we expect. So, but once you identify the putative transformant after screening, they should all be stable.
Okay. And somebody from Jammu, probably Sukhdev Raj, and his question is, what are the recommended variety for Jammu region to
Oh,
control beetles, blister beetles or something like that? I think that may not be an. Would you
yeah.
be able to answer that?
No, I mean, Jammu region, first of all, you should see whether the any variety is amenable to the transformation. And beetle, yeah, once up, there are some of these uh, we have not analyzed it, like, you know, these are these the beetles I have not worked with, but the varieties, I don't think there's anything that is resistant. If, I mean, I don't understand the question. Is that they want to develop the transgenics?
No, no, no. I don't think they are asking. He's asking basically for a suitable variety for Jammu. Yes. I think even I don't know if
Yeah,
Jammu Vision P is grown in Jammu.
yeah, exactly.
That is,
No,
yeah. The other one is somebody is asking about, can you explain a little bit about marker-free transgenics? Because most of the transformation system that the construct that you have, they have a selector marker gene. Have you
yeah,
worked on
no,
uh,
no.
this question
We
came from Dr. Manav Vikas Gowai of our department.
no, we have not worked with the marker free. I have not at all worked. All my transgenics have marker gene, and we have not only using this kanamycin, but we also use the herbicide tolerance as marker. So we have not used any marker free strategies for development of transgenics actually.
Okay. So there are some people who have raised their hands, and I'd like to ask them to, if they have some queries, they can go ahead. One is Prahlad Punia. Prahlad, would you like to speak and ask something? Hello? Suresh Kumar, do you have anything to ask? No, probably they don't want to ask anything. Anyways, I'll go ahead with one more question, and that is a student, Devojit, and he is asking whether have you ever seen any unintended effect of expression of cry gene, and how effective your strategy of gene stacking would be, especially when you use Cry1 AC and Cry1 F. Did you got
Gene
my question?
stacking? No, I did not.
The first question is
First one is
asking,
yes, yeah.
have you seen
So
any unintended effect or unacceptable effect in the plant phenotype due to
yeah, what
expression of BT?
yeah what I had most like generally what appears as an unintended effect is a dwarf plant, or the plant which is not able to grow, or there's not proper the enough growth, or there's no foliage, that kind of unintended, and we don't even touch those plants. So when we do the screening in the T1 generation, we not only look at their bioefficacy but also their phenotype. So we don't, and this is a major unintended, like when the plant doesn't grow, there's no point in us selecting that. So we just avoid those. So this is the major thing that we have observed in our study.
Our panelists, they want to ask some questions. Please go ahead. Our panelists, anybody? No. I have a few more questions. So one is about, I think it's about biosafety or transgenic technology. Subhashis Ranjan, he asked about, the issues, biosafety issues associated with the transgenic technology. So could you please highlight a little bit about it when you have, the environmental issues and other biosafety issues with the transgenics?
Yeah, the major biosafety issue is it should not produce any unintended effect, in the sense that there should not it should not be an allergen, it should not be toxic, and these are the biosafety concerns that we generally have, and more so when we are trying to assess when we are doing the field trial, we should see to it that you are not growing, that is, you're not testing your material close to the farmer field. And the compliance will actually look for such kind of you should really be very careful about not mixing up your material, and you should have your own event characterization, where you know that, yeah, this is the event and this is what I have generated, and whether it is getting mixed up or whatsoever. So for that we have to have the flanking sequence in place, which is the region this has gotten integrated into, and you have to have the event PCRs in place, where you can identify if there's any contamination at all in your field, or yours is getting contaminated with anywhere else. So these are some of the the criteria that is required before when you're doing, as well as before you go up for the evaluation at the field level. These are the major
there is one more question from Dr. M.D. Patil, and he is asking, can pre-weeding activities bring some light to introgress resistant gene to cultivated species?
Sorry, I didn't get you. What? Can you please repeat?
Can pre-breeding activities bring some light to introgress the resistant gene to cultivated species?
Definitely.
Okay. So the other one is from our scientist here from our center, Dr. Maulaya Gohai. She is asking, are you looking for novel insecticidal genes against Helicoverpa?
Novel is something like, what I am looking at is which is totally not present in the cultivated pigeon pea. And see, there are different strategies which we have come across, which is happening in the wild relative, and it could be the similar kind of genes with sequence variation. So basically it will have novel genes in the sense that which are not being generally used in the or which is not happening in the wild, in the cultivated, as well as the same kind of genes that are present in both. But the thing is that there is either expression level is more, or there is the expression level could be more due to the sequence variation. So these are the things, like, novel genes per se, yes, novel genes as well as the genes that are with sequence polymorphism. So these are the two things that we are looking at presently in between the Kajanas Kajan and the wild relative.
Another question is, so you have identified some targeted, whatever I got it from the question that was written there, is somebody, Surinder Paul, and he wrote that, you have identified some genes by transcriptome, probably.
Yeah.
He's thinking about that. And he's asking whether these genes are suitable for genome editing to develop insect resistance. Like, I've seen the list, some of them are protease inhibitors, some of them, do you think these genes are very much suitable for doing genome editing?
Yeah, so now we are still doing the work, and we have not come out with like conclusive evidences. But some of the genes, like we have seen, like the chitinase, though the chitinase genes chitinate is not a very novel gene or something totally different, but the variation what we have seen is in the sequences. So this is what we look for genome editing, right? So when there is a variation, the sequence level variation, which is resulting in a better efficacy, then it's best suitable for genome editing. So that's why I said that this can open avenues for genome editing as well.
Pradipta Bhaumik, he wrote a question that what is the segregation ratio of your transgenic progenies? So do you see a Mendelian segregation ratio?
Yes. Yeah, we do see, and those are the ones which we have continued.
Okay. Then what else? There is one question from Suparna Das. Have you performed mutation breeding before PCR or expression analysis? I don't know. I don't understand the question.
Yeah, no.
Anyways, that's what the questions are so far. I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you. Again, I see the Sandeep Singh raised his hand. Sandeep Singh, do you have any question? Sandeep Singh, Amit Saini, you have any question? Surinder Paul, do you have any question? I could see them, they have raised their hand. Now I have a couple of questions, 2 or 3. One is your, first of all, do you think Helicoverpa is really a big problem, or do you think Maruca vitrata is a big problem in Pigeon Pea? Which one is more
both
dominant in the field?
Both are rustic. It depends on the duration. So basically the long duration, the medium duration ones have always been bogged down by Helicoverpa, and these days the short duration ones, where there can be the Maruca emerging, the Maruca population will start emerging a little earlier. That is what we have heard from our scientists here. But both Maruca and Helicoverpa are equally mind-boggling, and also to the plant.
So if you think you are controlling both, because I don't think do you think Craven ECF and Cry2A will be effective against vitrata as well?
We have to see that. So this time, if we get the permission for the open field trial, then I'm sure we will be able to check that out as well. But we haven't checked. What happens is, in these two varieties which we sow generally we sow it in June end or July first week, and the Maruca population in field here mostly emerges in September. By then the flowering would have started, and that's the right time for us to assess the Maruca ability of the plants to resist Maruca or not. Mostly they target, it doesn't feed on leaves as we see in Helicoverpa arnigerus. So that's why we are now in the open field trial, we'll be able to check that if we get the permission.
I got a new question just now from one of my students, Mamta Bhattacharjee. She is asking about, first she said that the session was very informative, and then she is asking, what is the transformation frequency you have got with your protocol, implanter protocol, and what are the tips that you can share to improve the transformation efficiency in Pigeon Pea?
Yeah. The efficiency somewhere between, if I have to say, the total transformants which are superior, if I have to say, the identification of superior transformants may be 0.8 to 1%, lesser than 1%. But the number of plants that you get as positives during screening and PCR are still little more, say around 5 to 6%, or little more than that. And the tips, if I have to say, like the methodology that specifically with the methodology that we are following, it is the right stage of the seedling you have to collect, and the ability of the organism, that is the agrobacterium, to infect. For that we have made some changes actually in the to increase the virulence. We have added tobacco leaf extract. It's all there in my publication actually. We have added tobacco leaf extract as a inducer instead of using astrosyringeon. We have used a concoction of a mixed the total tobacco leaf extract, which is the mixture of phenolics we use to increase the virulence of the agrobacterium. And the tips would be that more the merrier. More you do, you will get more number, and it will be easy, since if you have a since we have a very high throughput screening, so it won't be difficult for us to screen. Only problem comes during the molecular analysis, because each molecular analysis that we do with Pigeon Pea is challenging. So that is the thing.
So no more question. Thank you. I think panelists, I'm asking again, do you have any questions? Shampa madam, do you have anything to ask? No, I don't see. So Rohini, Dr. Rohini, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Dr. Sharma, Vidhu Sharma sir as well, for organizing this webinar. It was informative. We could learn a lot from your experience of doing implant transformation and how you do select transgenic plants. Thank you once again for
Yeah,
doing
thank
this
you.
presentation.
Thank you,
Okay.
Smita. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.